here I am in the middle, like not sure who to go to. Do I want to go to my wife or see my son? So it was a lot, man, like a lot. So I got to hold him. That was it.
This is Andrew Rhodes and his family. Born with Hypoplastic Left Heart Syndrome, Andrew was in need of a heart transplant. This is the first time in 6 years that his family has sat down to tell the story.
Right out of high school, 2 kids, living over in England for 3 years.
We were in the military and we traveled quite a bit. We were very active, always doing a lot of things.
Came back stateside, we had a couple kids while we were in the military, so led that military life for a while. It's something that I always wanted to do. Just life circumstances brought us back home, and then got a job with recruiting, and then Andrew was born shortly after that. We had 3 girls. We always wanted a boy, so we said try one more time. God's grace, we got a boy, and it was different. We were excited. We knew the girl process. We had 3, and then we got a boy, so it was like totally new water. So the excitement was there. We went to the anatomy checkup, one of the OB checkups, and they were scanning his heart, doing all the different anatomy checks. And the doctor paused over the heart, and which for us was kind of unusual. We've been through 3, same doctor, never done that before, kind of worried us a little bit, like, why did he stop?
The OB that we were actually seeing said that that there was a problem, and we went into the room to discuss why they were looking at his heart so long in the ultrasound.
At the end of it, we went back and we started talking to him, and he said that he didn't want to give us an official word, but he saw abnormalities with the heart, the way the chambers were looking in the echo. He said it could be simple as shadows, but he wanted to refer us to another high-risk OB in Chattanooga. So we went there, and they confirmed it, that his left atrium, left ventricle were severely underdeveloped. They're real small, which was a sign of his condition, Hypoplastic Left Heart Syndrome.
I guess from there on, we were in lots of medical appointments. I ended up actually going into heart failure myself at the end of that pregnancy. It's just a lot of stress, I guess, and knowing that I could keep him safe while I had him in the womb.
Went through the process, then we found out my wife was in heart failure with the pregnancy. So now it's kind of a double whammy. You're like, man, now my son is a good chance I'm gonna lose my son, and there's a chance I'm gonna lose my wife in this process. And it was still hard to deal with. So, we got through the pregnancy, he was doing fine in the womb. We got hooked up with the doctors down in Atlanta, and then we went down there, they reconfirmed it. Yeah, it's gonna be hypoplastic. And we got through that process, and the day he was born, we had to go down to Atlanta to give birth, so we're already away from our family. We're down in new territory, we're in Atlanta. My wife is in heart failure, not sure if she's gonna make it through the actual birth. In my mind, I wasn't sure. It was the day that he was born, we had 20 doctors in the delivery room, and 10 for my wife, 10 for Andrew. And here I am in the middle, like not sure who to go to. Do I want to go to my wife or see my son?
They were running him out. People were running to make sure that my heart was okay. And we just got a very brief, maybe like a minute or 2 of just skin to skin, and then he was gone.
It was a lot, man, like a lot. So I got to hold him. That was it. 1 in 100 kids will have a CHD, a congenital heart defect of some sort. It could be as simple as a small hole in the heart, or as severe as missing half of the heart. Out of the 1 in 100 kids, 1 in 5,000 kids will actually have what he had. So it's extremely rare. There's no known cause for it. There's no cure for it. It's all surgical intervention. The first surgery happened, and it was a success. I mean, he was out of the hospital in 18 days, which was a little unheard of. Like he healed properly like he was supposed to. We were home for 16 hours and we were right back in the hospital. He started having some trouble breathing, keeping his oxygen levels where they needed to be, which is common, but we had to go back to the hospital. So it's still severe, but he got life flighted back down. Helicopter came and got him. We were in the hospital again. He got out about a month later, and we were good. You know, we stayed out of the hospital until his second surgery, which was 6 months old.
We knew when he was born that we were going to expect, like, his whole life would be nothing but being in the hospital and surgeries. And so I think after having that first one, it's the most fragile surgery. So just that time between that one and the second one was just constant, like, in and out of the hospital. And it's just thinking back on it, it's like it's a blur, because it's just constantly in and out of the hospital.
After that, it kind of got a little better, you know, as far as, okay, we're going to go through this, we're going to fight, we're going to make sure he has the best life he can have.
The first time that we were even brought the idea of a transplant, it's very frightening because it's not really a cure. It is just one set of problems for another set that you have to start looking for things.
So he had his second surgery. We got back home. He was good, and then he got sick. Yeah. It was a common cold. I was sick, I had a cold, he caught it, he tanked. They told us they weren't sure if he was going to make it. They were going to do everything they could to help him, but it was a pretty slim chance he was going to make it. The next 6 hours, they were working on him, trying to get him good to go, trying to get him stabilized. So they were running a bunch of tests on him, and we found out that he had multi-system organ failure. So his heart, liver, lung, bladder, kidneys were all shutting down. What they told us, he had a 5% chance of making it through the night, and he had a 6% chance of coming out of the hospital alive. We were told that Andrew wasn't going to make it several times. And at that point, you block it out. You know, you try not to get used to it, but in the end, if you hear it enough times, it's going to be, okay, whatever, you told me that before, and here he is.
You just learn to push through whatever comes at you.
The next day, we were moved down to the cardiac unit. His heart team found out he was there. They said he's coming down to us. So they brought him down, and we found out that his heart was tanking so bad that they had to give him medicine to make it squeeze. So they said he wasn't coming out of the hospital without a new heart, but with all the surgeries and everything that he'd had, it was a 1% chance of him actually getting a heart. The transplant doctor came in, and he said there was a way that they can lower his antibodies and get him a heart. He said they've only done it one other time. It was a success, but it takes a lot of fighting to get that approval. And he said he was willing to give Andrew a shot. So he went, and he was our advocate for Andrew with the heart transplant teams. So he fought. They said, okay, we'll list him, we'll give him a chance, and they listed him. So they said we were going to be there for a while. It was going to be a long stay, you know, before he would get a heart. And it turned out to be about a 3-month stay before we got discharged without a heart. But during that 3-month period, he had a stroke. He had blood clots in his leg from where they were doing heart casts. Clot broke loose, went to his brain, had a stroke. So the right side of his body was numb, whereas he didn't have control of it. It was gone. They said it was going to be 6 months before he would regain any motion. So another thing stacked on top of it.
We know that at that time the doctors wanted his heart to last as long as possible. He didn't have the greatest, it wasn't looking like the greatest outcome at that time if he had gotten a transplant, because he had such high antibodies. We knew that we were going to have to walk into several other surgeries. We knew that there was still going to be a life of struggles with having half of a heart.
I still remember the truck stop that I stopped at, and, you know, praise, like, hey, like, I can't do this, I can't control it, I gotta have you. And, you know, I just came back to God at that point. And just kept going every day. That would be my prayer time. Like, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? What can you do? Please help. 2-3 weeks later, his oxygen level started to come back up, and which was odd, because the only thing they were doing was giving him milrinone, which was just making his heart squeeze. They weren't doing any intervention until he got a new heart. But his oxygen level started coming up, which would indicate that his heart function was improving. Again, there's no reason that should be happening. And he started to move the right side of his body again. He started with his leg. He started jerking his leg, because I would tickle his feet every time I would leave just to see if he had a reaction. And he jerked it, you know. So we're like, holy crap, what's going on? Over the next 2 days, he got the full range of motion back on the right side of his body. Like, you couldn't tell he had a stroke. Heart function was continuing to improve, so we were asking the doctors, can you turn the oxygen down, because he had support, to see kind of where he was doing. It stayed up. It continued to go up. And over the next couple of weeks, he continued to improve, and the doctors had no idea why he was improving. So we get there, Next couple of weeks, continued to improve. So they started looking at pulling him off the transplant list. We're saying his heart is actually getting better to a point where he didn't need the transplant at that time, because they're still worried about the antibodies, which was always going to be a concern. Then we get to February, and they're like, hey, like, you could go home. Like, we don't need to keep you here. There's no reason to keep you here. There's no reason to keep him on the list. We'll keep watching him, but there's no reason to push it if that's going to put him in more danger than letting his heart get better. So that's what we did. You know, we came home, and, you know, it was good. Like, everything was good, which was kind of the short story of it, but it was, we were good for a year. And he went back for his last stage of his surgery, which was the Fontan, and we had our troubles with that. You know, we kind of came accustomed to having troubles with the heart process. And then January of this year, his oxygen level started to drop, and there was no reason. Like, the rest of his body was great. Like, he didn't have any other issues other than his oxygen level started to go down, which showed us that his heart was in trouble. We got him to the hospital. It was non-emergency. They went and did a cath just to see what was going on, and they started to see the thickening in the wall of the heart, which if one side's working harder, it's going to thicken, which is heart failure. So we're like, okay, so what do we do? They're like, it may be time to go down the transplant route. So we're going to take some time to evaluate it to see what we're going to have to do. If it's going to get better, we're going to really take it slow right now to see if this is what he needs. But they said it just looks like, based off of what they saw in the heart cath, that it's getting time. I was, you know, praying for, like, in your time, give us the heart. If it's not, then it is what it is. And then out of nowhere, it just happens.
It's less than 2 months. They expected him to go at least 7 months to wait. It all happened so fast. Nobody was expecting it to come that fast. And here we are.
53 days of being on the list, we get a call. And I remember it because it was 5 minutes before the Georgia-Tennessee game. And I was excited about the Georgia-Tennessee game. And then my wife gets a call. She panics because it's from the heart transplant team, and it was on a Saturday, which is not usual because they don't work on Saturday. They told us he had a heart, and we're like, well, back up. Like, that doesn't make sense. He didn't have the IVIG. He didn't have any of this other stuff, so how are you going to tell me that he has a heart? And they're like, he found one. The doctors found one. We need you to get to Atlanta. So we're like, okay, here we go. Be careful, you won't fall.
You didn't get you some sleep, baby. It's very important, so you're rested up for your new heart tomorrow.
Yeah, buddy. So 9 a.m. the next day, October 11th, he went back. The doctors went, got the heart, and they said it was a perfect match. They said they've never seen a heart fit a patient as perfect as this heart fit my son. Kind of put it into one picture. This heart had to go through all the kids who were on 1A, had to go through all the kids who were on 1B, all the kids who were on 1B with exception to get to my son. And he had a 15% chance of getting that heart. And it was a perfect match. You know, so right then it's like, I'm sitting in the waiting room, the OR waiting room, and just thinking, it's like fear wasn't in my mind. I'm like, if this heart came all the way down, that's his will. Like, there's nothing I could do that's going to change that. And so they went, got the heart. They were keeping us updated, you know, throughout the day. We went to the waiting room at 9 a.m. We didn't see him until 9 p.m. So from 9 to 9, we were getting updates. Hey, he's doing good. He's doing good. The biggest thing we were worried about was the weather, you know, because they fly to get the heart. And the day prior, there were tornadoes in southwest Fulton County, you know, which Atlanta. So we're like, man, in the wind, we were watching the wind. So we're like, God, they're not going to be able to get this heart. But they took a plane to get the heart instead of a helicopter, which is safer. To get the heart, they tell us they're on their way, and we hear them come in, which was, you know, weird. You know, there is a heart in that cooler, in that car, coming in to the hospital for your son. And we're sitting there. They get the heart in. Like, the part of the surgery that took the longest was actually getting through all the scar tissue. That heart gets there. It took them 2 hours to get the heart in. And they call us and say, hey, it's beating. And you're like, holy crap. You know, my son doesn't have a CHD anymore. He has a new heart. So you're like, man, it was weird.
Do you hear your heart? Mm-hmm. It's strong. heart. What's it sound like? I need to tell that for me. Thank you.
It was just a complete and total like euphoria that we were in. It was still almost like an unbelief that this had happened and that he was going through everything that he went through, and now we're on the uphill side of it. You know, we would have our challenges and days ahead, but he was just to be given this opportunity for somebody to be grateful. You know, we're grateful for those people that, you know, his donor family that chose in their darkest moments to give another family a chance at life, because he wouldn't be here today without them.
Every time we're in the hospital, you're getting that bad news, and to hear that your son's heart's beating, tears, man, like even now.
I truly believe in my faith that God just kind of let everything play out the way that he did, and he had everything planned, and you know, we're just in this joyous time that we're not used to, but just enjoying being a kid and watching him run full of energy around our house, and I still processing it, I think, to be honest. But it has been a beautiful time for our family. There's more meaning to life. There's more meaning to the little things, or, you know, bedtime routines that a lot of families rush through. We are soaking those times up, and even with his sisters, we are all just holding on to each other a little tighter and just extra thankful for this opportunity.
Because they always tell you that heart transplant isn't a cure, you know, but for us, it was weighing the options. Like, we know there's going to be issues either way we go. Do we want to deal with the issues with half heart or the issues with a whole heart? And we're like, let's go with the whole heart. So we knew it's still going to be a rough road, but he could be normal. You know, if everything went well, he would be normal. The doctors came in and they told us, out of every heart transplant, out of every transplant in general that hospital does, and they do the most in the nation, they've never, ever seen a heart transplant go as smooth as his did, and the recovery as smooth as his did. The typical stay is a month in the hospital. We were out of the hospital in 2 weeks, and he was up running around. He was up playing. As soon as he came out of ICU, he was playing, like he was up. You know, and that's weird. Like, we're still telling him, hey, slow down, buddy, you can't do that. He's like, nah, man, I got it. Coming out of his shell, like he's a totally different kid. It's like, I got the son that I thought I was gonna get from day one. COTA, Children's Organ Transplant Association, you know, it's a way of donating money to a family, and that money only go towards the medical process.
We actually just learned about them through this process. They help families to not focus on all of the bills and the things of life that doesn't stop when you're in the hospital. They've been a really big blessing in our life, for sure.
You know, you have the GoFundMes, you have the t-shirts which go to the family, you know, which are great. You know, when you're in the hospital, you know that money can go whatever you need it for. But in the long run, you know, like our situation, insurance is a big thing. You know, if I make over a certain amount, or if people make over a certain amount, you lose the insurance that your child's on. So that's always in the back of your mind. So what COTA does is, it's a nonprofit. You donate money to this account. The family can use the account for anything related to the organ transplant. It's whether it's travel to and from the hospital. If you're in the hospital for long stays, it's covering food. It's covering all those basic needs there, along with medicine. You know, just one of Andrew's medicines, you know, would cost $1,200 a month just for one of them, and it's not even the big one. It's not the rejection medicines. So, you know, the medicines aren't cheap. This allows family to keep money into an account for the entire life of the child. It's their money to use for specifically medical conditions. From the moment you get engaged, from the moment of transplant until the end, like, they're always going to be there. Everybody's here for a reason. You know, everybody will complete their life and then they go to a grave. You know, your organs don't have to. Your organs can keep 8 or 9 people out of their grave. And it's hard to fathom that. You know, it's, hey, if you take my heart, my kidneys, I mean, that could save 2 people there. My liver, you know, all that stuff can take your tragedy or something terrible that your family is going through and give so many other families hope. You know, this, and I think about it every day. This Christmas, I know there's one family that's hurting, but there's 9 that's not. So just save a life. Even if it's 1, save a life.
Like, I didn't really know that Andrew had it until, like, we all discovered and he started going to the hospital a lot, and, like, it kind of made me feel like, what's going on? I wish I could tell everybody of how fun and, like, how funny they are and how, like, they do everything as a family together. My favorite activity to do as a family is playing, like, games and doing, like, fun stuff, watching movies and all that. Andrew's really creative and funny, and I'm glad that I'm his sister.